Welcome to the Visual Storyteller. The Visual Storyteller podcast is dedicated to those who visually document the human experience of families from a documentary photographer's perspective. It also covers the concept of community visual journalism, an experiment as a so-called photo department of a county-wide newspaper, which was coined by photojournalist David Hobby. The topics covered will range from documenting families, weddings, birthing and end-of-life documentary photography, as well as documenting everyday people in our local communities. Other topics I will cover include the philosophy of authentic documentary photography in today's digital world, to gear, case studies, interviewing guests, and more. My name is Cliff Etzel. I'm an award-winning photojournalist living in the Pacific Northwest. I specialize in visual storytelling from a humanitarian perspective. Welcome to the very first podcast and what I hope will be a resource for other photographers looking for a platform to learn and discuss about a more authentic form of visually documenting our world. It has been my observation that many photographers today are obsessed with the idea of manipulating real life to portray it in a way that is only positive, without the full gamut of what it means to live the human experience, both the good with the bad. That's not to say I believe there isn't good in the world, but the manipulation of reality with digital technology today has become a cancer to those of us who learned the craft in a time when all there was film to shoot and darkroom prints to be made, where the only manipulation available was burning and dodging in the darkroom and using spot tone to touch up dust spots on our finished prints. Secondly, my delving into local community visual journalism is based on the original idea of Maryland-based photojournalist David Hobby, who comes from the same time as myself when I worked in newspaper and magazine. The concept is to create a visual archive, if you will, of the local community, much in the way a photo department used to before the consolidation by big media companies, who have more or less gutted the majority of photo departments for the sake of their bottom line and at the expense of serving their local community. I came across David's community visual journalism website, HOCO 360, that's HOCO 360, a few years back. The premise resonated with me and I created my own site to document my own local community. It's a labor of love, but it keeps me producing content when the paid work slows, which I'm sure listeners to this podcast who are photographers can relate to. In a sense, it's about taking the mantle of a photo department of a county-wide newspaper. Even though I gravitate to shooting stills only, we live in a multimedia world. For example, you're listening to this podcast. As such, I also produce audio slideshows and do combine video with some of my projects. Again, I have chosen to create authentic visual records of my subjects, utilizing the same tools in my digital darkroom that I used in my days of an analog darkroom. My initial goal is to produce a show once a week to get a sense of what topics to cover per episode. I'm not sure yet of the length of each podcast, so it will be a trial and error process as I get my bearings on what it means to produce this series. If you have any requests for specific topics to be discussed, please reach out to me and I'll add them to my topics list. Stay tuned and please subscribe so that when a new episode is live, you'll be notified. I'm grateful you tuned in for what I hope to be a valuable resource for those of us out there looking to create the same kind of visual stories that inspire me every morning when I wake up. If you're interested in having a family documentary photography session, either full day or half day, or you're looking to have your wedding shot as a documentary project, please feel free to reach out to me. You can visit my website at www.cliffetzel, that's C-L-I-F-F as in Foxtrot, E as in Edward, T as in Thomas, Z as in Zebra, E-L.com. Again, that's cliffetzel.com. Or you can reach out to me via email at cliff@cliffetzel.com. Until next time, keep your work real, keep it authentic and heart-centered. This is Cliff Etzel for the Visual Storyteller.